Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues, and passionate advocates for our planets. Welcome to another day of SGI Talks. Today we'll be talking about corals and coral reefs. I am Mshari Al-Saoud, and I'll be your host for this session, which is titled Reef Resilience, Developing Climate Change Solutions. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce my colleagues here, Mr. Khalid Al-Sheikh, Director of the Coral Reefs Department at the National Center for Wildlife, and Dr. Mazen Asiri, Executive Director of the Regional Center for Climate Change at the National Center for Meteorology. Please, and joining me, please, to welcome our guests here. تفضل استريحوا. Good afternoon again, and as we know that coral reefs globally are facing challenges, especially when it comes to climate change. And we're hearing a lot of stories about the degradation of corals and coral reefs around the world and the influence of that on the marine environment. But before going into this discussion, I'd like to ask Mr. Khalid on what really are corals. Are they plants? Are they animals? And you know, this question I asked a few years ago to an expert, and I want Mr. Khalid to elaborate on this. So what really are coral reefs, and what are their benefits to human and the planets as well?
Thank you for your question. Actually, the coral reef is an animal, soft tissue, and they build the structural skeleton based on calcium carbonates. The coral, they have really connected and symbiotic relationship between the coral and algae called zooxanthellae. That connection, or that symbiotic relationship, give it the coral some unique benefit. The zooxanthellae produce the nutrients, oxygen, and the color of the corals. The beautiful color of corals coming from zooxanthellae algae, which is the connections between the algae and corals is very sensitive. If there is any impacts on corals, like human, like the temperature, high temperature, there is disconnect or detach between the coral and zooxanthellae. During that state, the coral will lose the color and lose the nitrate and oxygen. In that situation, the coral will be under stress. That's why the symbiotic relationship between the animal, which is coral, and the algae give us the indicator of how is the marine habitat. Very complicated and very unique if we work or if we go through specific details like the symbiotic, which is a good example when you see that in the between zooxanthellae algae and the coral.
And is temperature the only threat on coral reefs, or there are other considerations when it comes, for example, the nutrient level or ocean acidification, or what are the other considerations that are influencing corals?
Acidification, one of the impacts on corals,
yes,
which is happens by climate change. And that's also impact on the connections between zooxanthellae and coral.
Okay, and before going to Dr. Mazen for more elaboration on the potential threats, what are the benefits, Mr. Khalid, that corals provide to human? Are there any economic benefits, any environmental benefits? What examples of benefits that corals provide to human?
As we know, the coral community around the world, I mean, I would like to mention first the status of coral reef in Saudi Arabia. We have in Saudi Arabia more than 6,660 square kilometers of coral reef, which is unique coral in the world. The benefit of corals give us the opportunity to open new vision in our ecosystem, like in ecotourism, that's benefit for human and the economy, plus the medical There is a lot of kind of medicine coming from the reef. Also, there is millions of marine biodiversity living in between the coral reef. There is another benefit from the coral reef. The coral reef is the first barrier to save our coastline from the current and the waves.
Amazing. So they provide food, they provide opportunities for economic activities like ecotourism, and they even protect our lands from waves and erosion as well.
Right.
Going to Dr. Mazen. Dr. Mazen, you've heard Mr. Khalid touching upon some of the threats that corals are facing globally, not even in the region. So can you please elaborate on the influence of climate change on corals?
Yes, of course. Let me start with the meaning of climate change. What is going on is the climate elements, for example, like temperature, rainfall, and so on, of climate elements, is changing from its normal situation. This changes is causing a change in the marine environment that make stress on the corals. For example, the temperature, as my colleague said, is causing stress on the corals that leads to bleach the coral itself. So, which means the many of the biodiversity depends on the corals is leaving or dying. Not only the temperature from the climate change is causing this, all of the extreme rainfall over the lands that will bring more sands to the sea, which will fill fill the places of the corals and let it to die. Another reason is the salinity. By increasing the evaporation, the salinity of the sea will increase, which changes the environment of the corals in the sea. Also, the acidity of the sea is increasing, and so on of the causes. So the climate change is affecting the corals' environment, and by a result, the corals will need to adapt itself or to resilience against the climate changes.
And is adaptation of corals, does it happen over short period of times, or over extended period of times?
Not exactly. There is a limit of time. Only the factor that can limit this or determine the time is how much is the stress from the element of climate changing and made it of the corals.
You've mentioned coral bleaching. And I would like to ask the audience here for you to raise your hand if you know what is coral bleaching. So, coral bleaching? No? Coral bleaching. Do anyone knows what coral bleaching is? Okay, so maybe we'll take this opportunity to explain what coral bleaching is. If I can go back to you, Mr. Khalid.
Okay.
Can you explain what coral bleaching is? And is it a reversible phenomena or something that could make like total damage to corals?
Yeah, I would like to mention here on sharing some information about the coral bleaching. Why the bleaching happen? The bleaching happen, as I mentioned before, the disconnect or discharge between the algae and the coral. During that situation, the coral in two options. They have two options: either die, because he cannot continue survival under stress of water, high temperature water, or the temperature can recover. If the temperature can recover, that means this is part of coral resilience, which is give the coral kind of opportunity to back again to life. It is life.
Okay.
It's a live coral, but it's under stress. That's why they call it bleaching. It's not totally damaged, not totally die. There is options, maybe die or not.
So there is a possibility that corals can go back, I mean, can still survive depending on what Dr. Mazen mentioned earlier, is the stress level that corals are facing over a certain period of time, and the necessity for the coexistence between the coral animal and the algae that are necessary for corals to live, to provide nutrients and photosynthesis. Am I right in this assessment?
100%.
Okay, perfect. So I hope you now got an idea of what coral bleaching is. So we've talked about corals. What are corals? What are the main threats that corals are facing in terms of climate change and the influences of climate change in terms of water acidification, raised temperature and salinity, and the influence of that on corals. Maybe we can speak a little bit now on the conservation and enhancement efforts. Mr. Khalid, can you elaborate on how can coral be resilient and coral resilience be enhanced to cope with the pressures and stresses that they face?
Yeah. The roles of Saudi Green Initiative can support the coral resilience by reduce the emissions and by increase the green cover in Saudi Arabia. The green cover can increase the carbon sinking and to extend the marine protected area. All of this can support the coral resilience by giving it a good quality of habitat, and that can support him to resist the impact on corals.
So conservation and relieving part of the pressure that corals are facing. But in the case that climate change continues to grow, Dr. Mazen, what is the future of coral reefs upon the continuous situation of climate change and the more influence that climate change are imposing on corals?
Yeah, according to some researchers on the different climate scenarios, mentioned or indicated to a severe harmful to the coral reefs. The bleaching will continue if the climate change still remain as it is or increase in its situation. So it's expected after 2040, 90% of the corals will be under bleaching process. So which means a lot of the biodiversity of the water will be under threat.
Amazing. I recalled, we had a small discussion, small chat before entering this room. And Mr. Khalid, you were mentioning something about the uniqueness of the corals in the Saudi waters, in the Red Sea. Can you let us, explain what is unique about the corals in our waters?
Yeah, I would like to mention here about the best 2% of coral community in the world is the north part, located in the north part of the Red Sea, which gives us as a unique coral reef community. Why does that happen? Why we are the 2%, the best 2%? Because we have unique genetic criteria, which is the genetic resilience and adapt the water temperature.
So the genetic characteristics of the corals in our water are more resilient to environmental stresses.
Yeah, and I would like to sharing here some study that Dr. Mohammed Qurban, the CEO of National Center for Wildlife, made his study in the Arabian Gulf to estimate the coral resilience. Let's imagine in under 9-meter depth, Dr. Mohammed Qurban has recorded the temperature at 9-meter depth, 38.5 Celsius. And we have to know the optimal water temperature for coral between 23 to 29. That means almost 10 degrees above the optimal level of seawater. And that gives us indicator to understand, or to better understand, we have unique genome in our coral and in our Saudi seas.
Yes.
And that can support us to manage or to to plan our solid manage to the coral reef in our seas in Saudi Arabia.
I mean, this is incredible because there are a lot of things that we can understand and study on the characteristics of the corals in the water, and we can have the ability to support many studies going on, such as, for example, I recall then the CORDAP, which is the Coral Research and Development Accelerator platform, which was initiated in during the G20 presidency of Saudi, G20 2020, that aims to accelerate research in the coral area. What the national centers are doing with regards to this, in terms of studies, activities. Dr. Mazen, the National Center for Meteorology and the Regional Center for Climate Change, what are you doing in terms of efforts and practices to preserve and enhance corals?
Right. Let me start with the National Center for Meteorology, which is responsible to observe all the climate element, all the weather element, atmospheric elements, and also the marine elements, and gives information to the stakeholders, the national stakeholders. Specifically for the Regional Center for Climate Change, is aiming to study or to understanding deeply the climate change, what it is, how the process in the atmosphere is going on, what is the future, and also to create high resolution climate database for the region. We are heading to have spatial resolution of 4 kilometers of data for climate elements and for different projections of climate change. And then studying the impact of the climate change over the ecosystem that in our region and in our country and in our region, MENA region, what I mean. And to do this study, to give the recommendation to the governmental sector, private sector, about what is going on, to find out the solutions for adaptation, for resilience, and so on.
Amazing. What about, Mr. Khalid, what about the National Center for Wildlife? What do you do to preserve and protect? And maybe you can tell us the story of some success stories that the National Center for Wildlife is working on.
Yeah, I would like to mention here about the success story of National Center for Wildlife. In 2022, the National Center for Wildlife started the decadal project to expedition the Red Sea. During that project, hundreds of scientists joined the project using oceanics with the high level of technology to monitor and explore the Red Sea, starting from the sea surface until deep sea until 3,000 meters. During that project, we record very unique coral community and very unique habitat and biodiversity. Also, within that project, we record or to identify the most important area in the south part of the Red Sea, which is more than 10 blowholes. The blowholes, what we found in there, we can see it is a treasury of corals with the unique creatures of marine creatures and biodiversity. I think there is vision and there is strategic to manage that blowholes based on the studies what we done already by oceanics.
Amazing. So you've mentioned the support of science in all of this, the enablement of science and the use of cutting-edge technologies and tools to explore, to monitor, to even use certain techniques to enhance and protect these corals. And if I may reflect, I mean, I have a small story that I want to share, is also the efforts that are, we have the Saudi Green Initiative. The Saudi Green Initiative might be perceived by some individuals that it's only about greening Saudi in terms of planting trees. But in fact, it has three strategic pillars. One is greening Saudi, second is reducing emissions, and third is protecting the land and the sea. And with these three pillars, we have multiple channels of enablement in terms of funding, in terms of strategies to different stakeholders nationally, be it governmental entities or private or giga projects as well. So for example, when you go, in your research and see the websites of the National Center for Wildlife, the National Center for Meteorology, and their activities with the corals, you can see a demonstration of the Saudi Green Initiative's commitment. In addition to that, we have the giga projects, the NEOM, the Red Sea destination, and the other projects are acting as huge economic engines, driving economic activities whilst protecting and enhancing the environment. So the Saudi now is under, huge activities in terms of environmental preservation and enhancement. Maybe we're about to close now. If I can give the floor to you, Dr. Mazen, to give some final thoughts from your perspective, and then we'll go to Mr. Khalid. Dr. Mazen.
Thank you for this opportunity to talk about the coral reefs and its impact by the climate change. Actually, climate change now is an international issue that we need to deal with it. We need to adapt ourselves, adapt our environment, and to increase our resilience of the impact of the climate change. A lot of work is going on in the climate issues through the Saudi initiative as an integrated work along the kingdom from the national centers and different ministries, working on the conserve the environment and to share the worldwide or globally the treatment or the deal with the climate change issues. This is what I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mazen, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with our guests here?
I would like to share about our vision for the protected areas, how the protected areas can support corals, and how to improve the coral resilience by protected areas. In Saudi Arabia, on our vision 2020, 30% of the Saudi seas will be as a marine protected areas. The marine protected areas, part of our vision is to rehabilitation the coral sites, which is damaged coral sites, and to improve our local community around the protected area, to improve the education by local public awareness. The local community with the high education around the protected area will support the National Center for Wildlife to help us to save the sources of marine biodiversity in the protected areas. And we are looking there to be the local community, one of the members to manage the protected areas.
Thank you very much. And you mentioned a very important point, which is the involvement of local communities. So any efforts to protect and enhance the environment must take into consideration the influenced communities and the influenced by the communities. And the inclusion of local communities give a sense of appreciation and ownership for those local communities to protect the land and even enhance it. And with that, I thank you very much for giving the time and sharing these thoughts. Please join me to thank my guests here before we close this session. We are opening up now for questions. So the floor is open for any questions you have. Please.